So I'll be speaking on complex complex fractures of the orbit. The important thing is that we need to know which fractures of ophthalmic interest may present with complexities which we need to handle. Naso-orbitoethmoid fractures are one, orbital roof fractures where we need to work with neurosurgeons, fractures where there are multiple bones involved, particularly with road accidents. They're often associated with multiple facial fractures as well, and the orbital floor fractures. Naso-orbitoethmoid fractures typically occur with blunt trauma and usually are a part of panfacial fractures or other associated fractures, and may involve the medial wall as we see here or the inferomedial orbit. The objectives of repair in these are to reduce the compressed and fractured bones, re-establish the normal intermedial canthal distance, make sure that if there is a disruption to the nasolacrimal system, that is taken care of, and the muscles and the tendons to be repositioned. And internal fixation is the most important aspect. At times, we use internal transnasal wiring for fixation of the medial canthus, but low-profile mini plates are the much more preferred method, which is what is being used here. You need those mini plates with 2 or 3 holes only, which are placed close to the posterior lacrimal crest, and you may pass Prolene sutures or any other permanent material for that purpose. You can see an example in this traumatic telecanthus and displaced canthus, which is being repositioned by Z-plasty, combined with a fixation of the medial canthus using a mini plate, and we are able to reposition the medial canthus to a much better position from here to here. Late sequelae, a bad telecanthus like this may need a much more Herculean effort, including bone grafts, wiring, opening up of the scar to revise it, and be able to improve the condition significantly, though still not ideal. Another example of a traumatic telecanthus, which is bilateral with NLD obstruction, where we did a transcoronal approach with a plastic surgeon and could combine a DCR with transnasal wiring. Roof fractures may be associated with an intracranial hematoma as well, but when there is no other associated brain injury, they may be left alone. So this is an example of a hypoophthalmos with proptosis with an orbital roof fracture, as we can see here. And if there is no intracranial involvement, the hematoma gradually absorbs and we can leave them alone. But where intervention is needed, a neurosurgical approach is what is used. Multiple orbital fractures require working with the team of plastic surgeons. ZMC fractures are quite common, as was the case in this patient here, with gross restriction of motility in several directions in the right eye. And we can see the fracture here, and the fracture of the zygomatic rim, which could be repositioned with microplating and an orbital 4 augmentation, improving the motility in all directions. This patient has a orbital floor fracture in the left with multiple involvements, but right eye has a third nerve palsy. So forgetting the right eye, we can look at the changes in the left eye with these multiple fractures involving the lateral wall, the temporal bone, and the orbital floor and the medial wall. So we could work with a multidisciplinary team, including maxillofacial surgeons with microplating, to fix this and get a much nicer position of the left eye. Orbital floor fractures are the key. It is important to evaluate them well, both in coronal cuts, sagittal cuts, along with the 3D reconstructions to see the extent of the fracture, and then take care of the surgery by either transconjunctival or transcaruncular approach, combining with a lateral canthotomy to cover it into a single eyelid incision. So this is how we do a swinging eyelid incision, and the different types of fractures then need to be tackled. Small linear fractures causing incarceration need to be repositioned, need to be lifted up and incarceration released. This may be followed by placement of an absorbable or a very thin implant, as we see here. Where there is buckling of bones and there is a gross depression, we may need to lift up the area of the fracture, identify it, release all the incarcerated contents by an extra effort of hand-in-hand technique. The older the fracture, the greater the effort at releasing the incarcerated contents, as we see here. Once the contents are lifted, you can see the defect very easily, and you can in fact see antrum through this area, as you see here now. And then you can place your plate in that area. So you can see the antrum here, and we're then placing a plate in position. Titanium floor implants have become increasingly popular now for larger fractures, especially if there is a floor medial wall combination, and these are able to take care of it very well, with post-op results being very gratifying, and you can get positioning of the plate in an ideal position to match with the other side. Of course, you can do a three-dimensional imaging to reproduce things with imaging. So a measurement by computer-based softwares gives a very good method of creating a floor and medial wall. We are currently doing a study with this. Navigation is an important method for tackling the blind areas posteriorly, which allows you to see your manipulation. Then you can combine computer modeling and intraoperative navigation in these cases. So it is important now to do a good data acquisition with the proper software. You can carry out a simulation to do all the planning of the repair. You can then have patient-specific implants prepared, use navigation or intraoperative imaging to precise repair. Thank you very much.